How's everyone doing? A lot of familiar faces. I have one course at the college, and that's in the bridging program for new Canadians, and I see a couple of people in the program over there. I've learned a lot from that group because even though they're coming here trying to fit in many ways they're way more advanced in the lifestyles they've been living, and so it's a bridge back to them as much as them bridging into our world. So we have Shilpa and Joanna. Anyone else? No. And Joanna just finished a placement at Horizon Utilities. She was there for 5 months. So really, today, like I'm going really soft and generic here because I think that's the approach that will be effective too. Last year there was a climate reality training with Al Gore, and they said, let's leave the information behind. Let's just, people are going to remember how they feel. So let's think of music. Who likes jazz? Classical? Who likes dancing? Who doesn't? Rock and roll? Okay. So we have this diversity in everything. So if we look at fitness, I found it interesting that like the Green Living Show, it now had like the muscle people in one area. Actually, beside the people that are into everything healthy from the organic perspective, like healthy eating, and then you have people that are making lavender and other essential oils. So somehow they're all bridging together, even though they're very different. So that's kind of the diversity that we have in everything. So any vegans in here? One. Vegetarian? Flexitarian? I'm a flexitarian now, but I delve into the different ones. And then who doesn't drink coffee? Who doesn't drink alcohol? Okay, and then our hobbies, right? We all have our different hobbies. In my dad's generation, every single one of his siblings had a hobby that they were a specialist in. So does anyone here have a hobby that's unique? Potter. Potter? Wow. How many artists in here? Closet artists? Or real artists? Okay. We have theater, people that are running theater companies and staircase theater. Okay, and then it goes into everything, right? We have transportation, cars, bikes. Who doesn't have a car? Quite a few. I didn't for a while, but now I do. Okay, who's been on their bike so far this year? I haven't. Who wants to be but just hasn't done it? Okay. Clothing, who goes into thrift shops? Who goes into thrift shops too often? Okay. Who would never go into a thrift shop? Okay, we're the organic crowd. Who's tidy? Who's messy? Who's in between? Okay, so these are all the fun things that we can look at. We're one way, someone else is a different way, but together we're all similar in 95% of the ways. So it ties in everything else. Who we pick as friends, the type of relationships we have, religion, politics, gender, weather, you name it. So the common theme is planet Earth on Earth Day. And then the permaculture flower. When I saw this was at the free school. I saw this for the first time. Because I'm an engineer, and engineers learn how to design things with non-living materials. And permaculture is designing things with living materials incorporated into it. So if you look at all these petals, they're the whole community around us. Culture and education, health and spiritual well-being, finance and economics, land, community, land and nature, the built environment, and everything in between. So ironically, not ironically, but many of these other, like yoga, we have green building, passive solar. I know Kathy's an expert in passive solar design. renewable energy, reuse, recycling. All these things are kind of becoming deeper into the mainstream, integrated into that. Meanwhile, many of these designs were 100 or 200 years ago, I guess. They were practiced out of necessity. So, anybody see the Fringe show last summer? We did a Fringe show. It was called Green Being Green. And in it, we kind of just asked some questions about how long we're going to be around. So, 80 years on average. So, if we actually think about how long we're going to be around, then it's sobering, isn't it? It might make us think about, what am I really doing with my life? I bring this up because there was a talk at the Yacht Club in Hamilton recently, and it was mostly seniors, and they took over the conversation, and their point was that aging is a privilege and part of the process of getting older, whereas we have this denial. 40s are the new 30s, 70s are the new 40s, whatever they are. So with that denial, often we ignore these things. The 7th generation principle. Everyone know that? How they're different. Anybody want to explain it?
I don't know if this is it, but I just heard on a program on CBC the other day that whatever you do, you have to think about how it will impact the 7th generation furthest from you. And if it would impact them negatively, you may not want to do it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. And we're a candidate from 7th generation before, Tom?
Yeah, you just said it, like, you have to remember what people were doing 7 generations before. Is it the same? Are you better or are you worse?
So these are, yes. So these are all simple things, simple principles. And I just wrote down a few other statements here. You can own things, but you can't take them with you. You can own the Taj Mahal, but it's a hassle to carry around with you. Earn, learn, return. I learned that. Was that from Dave or Jim Sweetman? Dundas in Transition. Earn, learn, return. Actually, it's the other way around. Learn, earn, return. So you learn things, you make your money, and then you return back to society. And it seems like that last return is something that has maybe disappeared as we say, hey, in 10 years, I could be pushing daisies, as my dad used to say. So my time is limited, and what will my legacy be? And another person that has gone, Maggie Hughes, she, at her eulogy, they had this, life is about what you get, not what you get. So these are all characteristics that we cherish in others. So parents, friends, family, in nature, the simple, beautiful things, but we don't really place any value on them economically. This is more, yeah, we're getting a little, this is more the spiritual side versus the mechanical economics. We hold the values in here. But of course, when anyone goes to heaven or wherever they're going, it's, they're stars, right? We only focus on the beautiful, priceless, or characteristics that don't have any value. Okay. So, moving beyond consumption, I wrote down some ideas. At the end, we'll throw some ideas out for radical solutions. So what are some of the trends right now? We have, well, geographic location in the city, the water, escarpment, arrow land, urban farming. We have all these grassroots movements. We have someone that can do pottery, and who's going to be taking a workshop this spring? Who can knit here? Who can do woodwork? Who writes? So our grandparents, they can do most of these things, but gain out of practical. So we're relearning, rethinking. We have a lot of grassroots movements. We heard about transport. Yes, we can in simple streets, open streets. One trend, I've sat in a few of the presentations and I'm hearing a lot of this est and ost. And that's a bit of a challenge too, because why can't we be just who we are? We don't have to be compared to the other communities. We can just be real Hamilton or a good Hamilton. And that way we're not better than the next guy. And that everyone can raise a bar. This is from Dan Medikovich. He talked about it one day. Because he's tired to hear all the comparative things. Instead of just saying, hey, my community is unique, let's just make it the best we can be. So this is a simplification movement, slowing down. So we can apply this to materials, but to all the categories we have, like transport, food, neighborhoods, waste. Why can't we just go low tech, local, long lasting, less? So other strengths, the waterfront lands, local manufacturing, diversity. One thing with the manufacturing, because with my job, I work for Horizon Utilities during the day. I'm not representing them here, but I see a lot of companies, and sadly, so many are manufacturing auto materials for cars. And often we get into the discussion, when are we going to move beyond the car and start building things for the future that will make the world a better place? Did anyone think of any other strengths? Besides us being closed to lunch? Okay, weaknesses. Okay, the current system. I'm gonna focus on the airport a little bit. Ironically, this room is sponsored by one of the chief advocates for the airport. So, yeah, so we have $1 billion airport expansion, yet we have participatory budget. That's $1,000 less, and we have it all over the place saying, hey, we want to get everyone working together on a participatory budget, yet that's 0.1% of the white elephant in the room. So that's where ideally we need more people to have that shift internally. So weaknesses, you could say the lack of wisdom as in the fact that we're not really looking ahead as much. And that efficiency can be applied to everything, including the education system. We went and talked to a marketing class at MAC recently, second year, and they didn't know what peak oil was or,
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not, the thing is it's not being taught everywhere. And it can be discouraging, but it can be viewed as an opportunity. And there's a book called, by Naomi Klein, what's it, Shock Doctrine? Yeah, thank you, Dave. Shock Doctrine. And they talk about the Chicago school, and when I did my MBA, it was the same. We're not learning about anything sustainable, except that might be shifting a little bit, but it's still a token externality. So think of solar PV, solar photovoltaic, electric panels. I have one on my roof and a solar hot water system, but how many people in here have a solar system? Or would like to get one if they could? So there we are, right? So there's an interest for us to have demonstration models, not only for conservation, but also for renewable energy. I thought it was interesting because we toured the Courtright Center and Earth Ranger Center in Courtright, Ontario, just near Canada's Wonderland. And we were looking at all these funky technologies. And Kathy Garneau said, this is great, but really, we don't need most of these things. We should just be simplifying. And it took me a couple days to digest that, because my initial reaction was, hey, go with it. Just be polite, be cool. But when I thought about that more, that's like the next level of progress by slowing down, by simplifying. Okay, media coverage, that's been a challenge, but we do have the alternative media emerging. At the United Nations climate change conferences, doesn't have quite as much momentum now, even though it's a huge issue, or the issue. there's this alternative media area that's as big as the mainstream media area. So there's also a alternative summit where they have all these renewable energy technologies and funky ideas to produce electricity and to live sustainably. That's not filtering down as much as it could be to where we are. Okay, the other thing is we're still focused on the investment. If somebody's making $1 zillion, somebody's paying the price. So that's a big challenge I have personally, because I have some close friends that are working for the mining company, making zillions of dollars, and then they get $50 a green piece. So it's almost that the maturity of looking in a mirror. Okay, there are good things too. We have all these communities aligned, so all those petals that we talk about, we've heard about transportation, food, and other things, brownfields, they're all the same. So if somebody can gain awareness in one area, if they look next door, hopefully they can start recognizing that that person is doing the exact same thing that they are, but they're just in a different petal. There was an article in Urbanicity, I put one in about Mandela recently, and the same idea that we have, every one of us is a Mandela, Nelson Mandela, we just have to figure out what our petal is. So we do have grassroots media, food movement. Who here is involved in a community garden? Which one?
The Ancaster Discovery Gardens.
And where are they?
Well, they're relocating to a new spot because they were leasing or just borrowing land. And some development gardens is more of a demonstration garden. But
All right.
the produce goes to Ancaster Community Services.
Really? Perfect. Where's yours?
We've done this. We've done this.
At a church? Or?
Yes.
Great. Somebody else?
Well, I work for the city, so I work on all things gardens, school gardens, community gardens, urban farm.
Perfect. And how many people have, and what else? Did I miss someone? No. How many people have gardens in their backyard? And how many people would like to have a garden in their backyard? And how many people, their grandparents had gardens in their backyard? Everyone, right? I know, Pete, you guys grew potatoes, right?
Good guess.
Okay, so right now we're having this, everyone that, whenever anything from that our grandparents did is reinvented, we're brilliant. It's great. So we're actually, by simplifying, we're being brilliant. So we can create all these things, city of rain barrels, bees, bikes, arts, every aspect of life. And then I actually Googled this to make sure, just to see if it was used or not. I didn't want to own it though, but it's everywhere already. Buy local, less, and low tech. Okay, so who wants an LRT in the city? Who flies out of Hamilton Airport? I'm just saying, sometimes we can have a scale to say, hey, what's it going to be? Who goes to Tim Hortons? Who goes to the local coffee shop? See, this is all part of the diversity. It's not right or wrong, it just is. Even though I noticed. Okay, threats. Okay, we have a bunch of threats. And I put pink on here for a reason, to soften it. So we still have this old system in place, and somehow we can get more people to kind of look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm burning the city. So we have complacency at maybe both sides of the coin. Lack of transparency, denial of reality. We have these silos still. And the reason why I put music up at the beginning, because I remember on CBC they had somebody talking about how they loved this one type of music, but they hated all the others. And they were talking about the importance of the different music segments coming together. Okay, focusing externally versus internally. Right now we're still focusing on external. Like back to the airport, for example. Why do we have to invest to move things away when we can build something internally for everyone that's living here? That can tie also to the investments that we have. Meism and technological paralysis. What do you think if the internet went down tomorrow? What would happen?
What is the reference to community silos, fragmented silos? What's the silo?
Well, the silo were like the petals in the flower at the beginning. When we said that we have all these different groups, like energy is a good example. We have the renewable energy people, and then we have the conservation people. And within the renewable energy area, we have the wind people. They just want wind. Others just want solar. Yeah, others want hydro, for example. So within those silos, we're actually fragmented too. And I could say that even in there are sectors in the city, but there is more cooperation happening. The challenge is we're competing for limited dollars often. Okay, moving forward. So basically it's working together. Unity, enjoying the process, living a satisfied existence, the learn, earn, return again, and then celebrating the differences between us. Okay, so this is where we're going to get into the consumption solutions. So we know them and have them. So energy equals economy equals environment. They're all the same. So what would we like to see in these different categories? Food, transport, water, inequality, greed versus green, saying, hey, are we going to focus on just making profits for ourselves? Or are we going to say, okay, let's invest for the 7 generations coming up? And in my career, hey, that's my career, whoops, that's my career, don't touch it. Somehow there has to be a look at our careers, saying, hey, what are you really doing? So for me, I used to work on the pipelines in Calgary. I was a consultant selling pipeline compressors. So Trans-Canada Pipeline, the Alliance Pipeline, West Coast Energy. I used to fly all over the place. And I just didn't understand. And people would say to me, you have like a master's in environmental engineering, yet you are working for the pipelines. But I didn't understand. I just didn't. I said, yeah, it's a good job. So I just couldn't count to 10 in that aspect, in that silo of who I am. But I changed. So there's lots of people can change. So I rethought what I was doing. Now, let's look here. What are some radical solutions in some of these areas? I know we don't have much time. But like, I mean, okay, food. What's something you want to see related to food? If you could say, let's shake up the system right now in Hamilton. What about when you drive down the street and you see 40 workers planting tulips every 3 weeks? Hey, wouldn't it be nice if they had permanent food there and berry bushes? Anything else?
The city actually has a program to plant trees, but I think they won't plant fruit trees or nut trees because they're concerned about what falls down.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So if you want a tree on your front yard, you can have a fine tree, but it's not a fruit tree.
Say more easy availability for people who grow in their backyards and donate food things.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'd like to see a city with no food banks because everybody has enough food.
So one step at a time, right? We're done. So it's like that with like transport. We have the car share, we have LRT, we have all these other transit groups. There isn't total alignment all the time, but I know that it's pulling together. So we could say that we could tell, like, what about the de-paving? De-paving, wouldn't that be great? You get rid of a few streets, initially the neighbors would resist, or half of them would resist. And then in a couple of years, the little playground in between, the houses would be much higher in value if that's the priority. Who would like their street to be de-paved? But like, how do we do that? Okay. Neighborhoods. This is also a Dundas and transition thing. They had this idea to get 100 solutions. And one of them was, why doesn't every second house put their garbage beside the other house? So when the trucks go by, they only have to stop 50% of the times. But I know it didn't go anywhere, but the thing is that people could do it on their own. So this is where the radical solutions, the renegade solutions are, like anything's possible. That's all. Thanks, guys.